on today's StoryBeat.
I wasn't trying to be Buddy Holly or Elvis Presley or anything like that, but I felt that I needed to learn exactly what they were doing as at least a platform to start, to have the dexterity to create within those things. And in those days, we were all cover bands. Even the Beatles were cover bands. The only reason they started writing, Paul tells this story, says the only reason they started writing is because they would play at gigs where other bands were playing, and the other bands would be doing the same songs they were doing. And the only way to get out of that was to write their own songs. Otherwise, they never would have started either.
This is StoryBeat with Steve Cuden, a podcast for the creative mind. StoryBeat explores how masters of creativity develop and produce brilliant works that people everywhere love and admire. So join us as we discover how talented creators find success in the worlds of imagination and entertainment. Here now is your host, Steve Cuden.
Thanks for joining us on StoryBeat. We're coming to you from the Steel City, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My guest today, Jimmy Ryan, is back for his second visit to this podcast. Jimmy's best known as a guitarist, composer, producer, arranger, and author with a career spanning almost 6 decades and continuing to this day. He recently performed with triple Grammy winner Olivia Rodrigo at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony, celebrating his longtime friend and former bandmate, Carly Simon, as she was made a member of the Hall of Fame. Jimmy was Carly's guitarist for 21 years. He was a soloist on the theme song from Working Girl, Let the River Run, which won a Golden Globes Award, a Grammy, and an Oscar. He was the bassist and a vocalist on Anticipation, as well as the guitarist and soloist on the hit You're So Vain, which holds a place in the Billboard Top 100 songs of all time. As well as working alongside Carly Simon, Jimmy has recorded with Cat Stevens, Jim Croce, Elton John, James Taylor, The Doors, Tommy James, Jimmy Webb, Andy Williams, Rod Stewart, and many others. In fact, he's recorded with 7 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees. Jimmy's written 2 critically acclaimed 5-star rated books, The Superstar Chronicles, Tales of Life Among Rock Royalty, and California Dreaming and Primal Screaming, Gurus and Psychics and Shrinks. Oh my. I've read both of Jimmy's excellent books. We chatted about The Superstar Chronicles during his first time on StoryBeat. Today, we'll delve a bit into California Dreaming and Primal Screaming, which deals more with Jimmy's approach to life psychologically and spiritually than it does with his great music career. In 2023, Jimmy received the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Iowa Rock and Roll Music Association as he was inducted into their Hall of Fame. Please be sure to stick around at the end of the show because Jimmy has generously lent us an excellent unreleased song that he wrote, produced, and on which he played all the instruments called Why Can't We Just Be Friends, featuring the vocals of Dana Calitri. So for all those reasons and many more, I'm truly delighted to have the extraordinarily talented guitarist, writer, and producer, Jimmy Ryan, join me today for his second time on the show. Jimmy, welcome back to StoryBeat.
My head's twice the size it was when I sat down. Thank you for all of that.
Will you be able to get through the door? That's the question.
Oh, God, I don't know. It's a wide door. I think I'm okay.
Well, since we last spoke a couple of years ago, you published California Dreaming and Primal Screaming, which we'll get into in much more depth shortly. But first, I'm wondering if you've continued to work in the world of music. And if so, doing what? What have you been up to?
Well, I'm right in the middle of scoring a film that, although it's not a dramatic film, it's more of a documentary. It's an important film and the thrill of my life. It is the story of the Vera C. Rubin Observatory and Telescope, the largest telescope on the planet in Chile. And PBS picked me to write the music for it. I had worked with them before. I wrote for Nova, that is. I worked with Neil deGrasse Tyson on the Pluto Files, which was the story of Pluto, that when I believe it was Neil who decided Pluto was not a planet. It was kind of just a dirt ball on the outer there in the among the other rocks in the outer solar system. Anyway, so this was kind of a callback, and I was thrilled to do it. I'm just having a blast. You just cannot imagine how many galaxies and stars there are out there. When you see one of the photographs this thing takes, they said it would take 1,500 high def TVs to display in full color and full size one photo.
Wow.
1,500 TVs. It's something like, I think, 3.6 billion pixels.
And it shows a huge amount of the universe, doesn't it? Compared to old photographs.
Every night they every 10 days they photograph the entire visible universe.
That's wild.
And I take a look at these pictures, and you just see them in a kind of average size, and then you start zooming in, and you can't zoom far enough in to make them start blurring. And you see more and more, and you're just like, oh my God, there's no space there. There's just nothing but planets and stars. In fact, I saw two galaxies side by side, and in the comment, aren't they going to collide? And they said, no, the one on the right is 15 light years behind the one in the foreground, but they look like they're right next to each other because you don't really get the depth. But anyway, so you asked if I was doing that, and I'm touring with my band Commotion.
Nice.
I had a jam band here just to keep playing guitar, because I love playing guitar, with some really fantastic musicians. And one night, our lead singer Steve McLean just started singing like John Fogerty, and we were all like, "Where did that come from?" And he's unbelievably good at it. So good that people see our demo. We have a shot with 5 cameras, a real publicity thing. And then Lucy goes, oh my God, he sounds just like Fogerty. No, he doesn't. He doesn't sound anything like Fogerty. What he sounds is really good. And when you hear this song sung by a really, really good singer, you just go there. So we get standing ovations every concert. We're selling out every place we play. We're playing big theaters. And it's a blast. So scoring a film and touring at the same time.
So you're very busy musically then.
Absolutely. Haven't rested a minute.
So I have to ask you bring up Neil deGrasse Tyson. I'm a giant fan of his. Did you get to actually work with him?
Not with him, but I went to the after party and hung out with him.
Oh, that's neat.
Composers get the film when it's kind of done. I've heard that Hans Zimmer, people like that, often sit down with a film producer and ask them what the film's about. And then they'll go back and just compose something, even without seeing any film. This one, I got the finished product. So
let me ask you then, when you get that footage, what is the first thing that you do? What do you think about?
Panic. I panic. One of the greatest fear that I certainly have, and I imagine a lot of composers have, is the blank screen.
Sure. It's just like the blank screen when you're a writer. Well, what are you going to do?
Absolutely. So I just sit there and I look at it. I go, oh my God, and I always have the fear that I'm going to come up with an idea that they're going to hate, that it's not going to work. And then they send me temporary music, stuff that they put on there. I go, what is that? That's awful. That doesn't work at all. And then some things that do work. But they even put pieces of mine that I did for the Plutophiles against it. And I didn't think it worked at all. I just took a shot and started writing what I thought worked. I'm just past the halfway point now, and not a single cue has been turned down. So they're really enjoying it. And they're really just giving me free rein, which is great.
So just so you know, and so the listeners know, it's not uncommon for editors to put temp music in just to give them a rhythm.
Yeah. Well, they like to edit to something. They like to feel beats and stuff like that. So I'll sometimes match the tempo of the temporary piece, but I never copy the temporary piece, because it's usually stock music. It's not usually real high quality stuff. I mean, they're not grabbing a piece from Gladiator and throwing it against the thing.
All right. So I need to ask, as you have aged and you're no longer 20, neither am I for that matter, does playing music, ever become more challenging for you because of your age?
No. What becomes challenging is finding time to practice. I found with this Credence band, Commotion, that I'm working on, if you stray even a little bit away from the way John Fogerty plays or how the songs are constructed, they don't sound right. So I have to constantly practice them to stay in that wheelhouse, if you want to call it that. So, when I'm scoring a film, generally speaking, there's no guitar on this. This is like John Williams. It's big orchestral, heavy duty stuff. So there'll be a few days I'll go and I won't even touch a guitar. And then when I pick it up, when you have to play at the level that I'm expected to play, I mean, I can always pick up a guitar and play, of course. But when you're expected to play solos that really sing like Eric Clapton, you got to practice, kind of every day. So I get backed up a little bit with that.
You said in the last show that we did that you were not playing as much as you had been, and that in fact your calluses were getting soft.
That does happen, especially when you bend strings, because you push the string up, and especially on the high strings, which are just single wires, they're not wrapped. So you push them up and they dig right into your fingers. So if your calluses aren't good and hard, after about a half hour of doing that, yeah, they're pretty sore.
Wow. So you have to actually get back in that groove then.
Yeah. So now that I'm cruising a little bit with the film, they're liking what I'm doing. I'm managing to get a half hour, 45 minutes of practice in, as well as doing the film. So that it's okay.
So you, as a player, you have to keep playing. You can't stop. It's something that you have to do in order to keep up your chops, right?
Oh, absolutely. Sure.
So is there anything that you have done over time that's continued to be something that you use to improve your playing? I'm just curious because you've been at this for a long time. Is there something you do to continue to improve?
Yeah, I take lessons.
You take lessons?
Yeah, absolutely. There's this absolutely brilliant guitar player named Tom Hess. He's in Chicago. And I just stumbled on an Facebook ad from him. And I went on his website and I get this guy sounds really good. So I talked to him a little bit and I told him what I wanted to do. And I listened to him doing it and he was as good as it gets. So I haven't started yet because I couldn't with this film, but I got the first lesson. I looked at it. It's very methodical. He's a great teacher. He's showing me how to do, things like you would hear Eddie Van Halen doing, not just not simple solos, but that kind of stuff, which I've never been good at. I've been the melodic guy, like the solo on You're So Vain. There's nothing particularly speedy about that, nor the solo on Let the River Run, because 99% of the sessions I get called for, that's not what they want. They're not that kind of song. I mean, nobody's going to call me for a speed metal. Metallica is not going to call me to play on their record. So I haven't really had use for that kind of playing. But I just for me, I'd like to learn how to do it just for fun.
Did he ask you why you needed lessons?
Yeah.
I would have asked you that.
Well, he was very tactful about it because he said, send me some examples of your playing, and I sent him, this all the. He says, wow, congratulations on your very successful career. What exactly is it that you'd like to learn?
Yeah, no kidding.
And he got it right away because I was asking him to teach me something that was not represented at all in what I sent him. And he said, I can absolutely teach you that.
So I'm curious, what is it about music that continues to draw you to it? What fascinates you continually about music?
I don't know. I think it is genetically implanted in my brain that I feel it, I hear it, and the older I get, the more I hear just the most minute details. I can pick out, this is going to sound like I'm bragging, but I can listen to a symphony orchestra and tell you exactly what instruments are playing, in which point, and at which point they switch over to a similar instrument, where they're located in the sound thing. Doing it so long, I've just become more and more attuned to it. And what that's done is it's made me appreciate it more and more. So I just love listening to great music. I'm a huge Rachmaninoff fan, believe it or not. I listen to Ozzy Osbourne too. I don't have any boundaries on my taste for music. I don't listen to an awful lot of jazz. That's a genre that just doesn't move me that much. I recognize that it's probably the highest level of playing there is. Just doesn't move me that much. But I listen to a lot of classical.
So I was going to say that jazz is a lot of improvisation. And you've done a lot of work that's, I think, probably less improvisational.
Exactly. The solo for You're So Vain, I wrote. Carly and the producer gave me the track, and I went back to the apartment I was staying in London and sat there and played with it. And I came in with this solo done. And I said, what do you think of this? And they said, that's it, you're done. But it wasn't such a big deal because I had rehearsed it. It wasn't like it came off the top of my head and there was this great solo. I had written it. The Let the River Run one was more like, seat of my pants. I had no idea what to do. And I was there with Carly and Rob Mounsey. And they said, yeah, just play something wild. Just make the thing scream. And it took some time. It took about an hour.
It would take most people days, but you an hour, yeah.
The BBC did a retrospective of the No Secrets album, which had You're So Vain on it. It was called Classic Tracks, Carly Simon's No Secrets. And they sent a film crew here to my studio because they wanted to include me on the thing. And I told this story I just told you. I'd worked it out in the apartment, went in and I said, so something like that, you want to try it again? And Richard Perry, the producer, said, yeah, I think we're good. I love it. And I said, wow, okay, that was easy. They interview Richard Perry. He says, one take. Yeah, maybe one weekend. I'm like, what are you talking about? Richard is no longer with us, and I think he was in sort of advanced stages of Parkinson's when he did this. So his memory was certainly challenged because
Well, how many years had it been since you'd done it?
50 years. Oh, well, no, by then it was 45 years.
So he very well might have conflated you with someone else.
I think you're absolutely right. And here's the reason it's nonsense. If it takes you a weekend to do a solo, you aren't doing that solo.
Right. That's right.
I mean, we had sax players in for one of the songs on that, and a couple of them just didn't cut it, and they weren't there more than an hour. They were there an hour, hour and a half late, and then they finally got Bobby Keys in there, the Stones thing, and he nailed it on the first take, and Richard kept making him do it over and over again. We ended up keeping the first take. Nobody will keep you there for a weekend. You're lucky if you get an hour. If you're not cutting it in an hour, it's thank you so much. We have just what we need. Leave your W4 in the wastebasket on the way out.
I'm trying to remember the title of it. There's a relatively new documentary about studio musicians in Hollywood, and those folks, they're talking to the composers are saying the question is, well, how long did you have to rehearse with this orchestra? And they laugh. They go, rehearse? They come in, they do it in one take. Sight reading it.
Yeah, you can, but then, is it the vibe that they want? And that's when the time comes in. Yeah, you read the chart, but it's not exactly how I wanted it. I mean, I was just reading today, oh God, Maxwell's Silverhammer, the Beatles song. The Beatles almost killed each other during that because McCartney wanted so much detail and so exact and minor and changed this and changed that. And Lennon was like, oh my God, I never want to hear this song again, And then it still came out absolutely brilliant, but only because he was willing to put that much effort into it.
Sometimes genius goes that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's truly a genius. So let's talk about writing for a moment, both writing music as well as prose. How old were you when you first started to think about words, books, writing?
Oh, I'm very clear on that. When my first band, the Critters, we had a couple of top 10 hits, or top 40 hits, one was top 10, the other two were top 40. A new member came into the band and he was a really good singer and he wrote songs. And I noticed that the girls really liked his songs. And I said, I'm going to write some songs. This isn't fair. So the impetus was, wanting to impress the high school girls. I wouldn't say that I'm a brilliant lyricist. I can write a melody as good as the next guy. Lyrics, I have to work on pretty hard. And there are people who do it so well, like Paul Simon and, oh gosh, Carly does it very well.
Billy Joel.
Billy Joel's a genius. Oh my God, he's so good at that. I prefer to work with lyricists and write music. I have no problem writing music.
So where did this notion of I'm going to write a book came from? Your first book is well written. Your second book is well written. This is a different discipline and skill set than writing music, obviously.
It is, and it came from COVID.
COVID.
Yeah. Well, my other band that I played with for about 10 years, a band called the Hitmen, we were all studio musicians who had played on a bunch of records. And we had actually 3 of Frankie Valli's 4 Seasons in the band, the new ones that did Who Loves You and Oh, What a Night and all that. So initially we were doing mostly 4 Seasons songs and songs that we had played on. I did a Jim Croce song because I played with him. A couple of the guys played with Tommy James and Shondell. So we did. COVID came along and everything we had in the entire future got canceled. Not a single gig. All the places pulled the plugs, turned the lights off, and went home. And what would have been just a fantastic gig, Carnegie Hall was going to honor Carly Simon. It was like the Kennedy honors or something like that, but at Carnegie Hall. It was all set to go. Rehearsals were planned. I got my plane fare. COVID came along. Boom, gone. So I had a lot of time on my hands. And I was sitting with, this is a story I tell people, and this is the true story. On one of my last gigs, I was in New York, and my son, Gavin, lives there. He works for Atlantic Records, and we always get together, have a beer. And we're sitting there and he loves the stories. He's a real music lover. And he stopped me in the middle of his story. He asked me to tell him a story about like the Doors or whatever, you know. He said, Dad, you got to write a book. Write a book? I was an engineering student, not an English student. I wouldn't know where to start. He says, start with what you're doing right here in this bar. Just tell the damn stories. So I did that. And I got an app called Pro Writing something or other, a couple of things. And I started writing and I would run it through this thing. It said, it would never say this is dumb. They said, this is lagging on. You need to trim it down. Your grammar's a little awkward. Do this. And it really helped me. It was like taking a high level English course. And I kept a really good calendar. And I just went through the calendar and I said, oh, that date. Yeah, I remember that when I was da 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 da. And then it all started coming up. But the impetus for doing it was there was nothing to do. It was COVID. And what better thing to do than the solitary art of writing a book?
So your research essentially was to go back to the calendars.
Yes.
And that then triggered the memories.
Exactly. Now, if I wanted exact details, times, dates, things like that, I would go to Wikipedia. Anything that I couldn't remember, since we're talking about big stars, is certainly in Wikipedia. So if I didn't remember when they were born, you know, not a dumb thing like that, but the name of a particular song or the name of a particular album or something, the exact name, because you know you want to get it right. Like when I worked with John Entwistle of The Who, we started off as Rigor Mortis, but I think the album ended up being called Ox. So my memory was Rigor Mortis. And then I looked it up and I went, oh, he changed the name when he released it. I forgot about that. So it was little details that Wikipedia was very helpful.
Just a little guy like John Entwistle.
Yeah, he was a big guy.
Both playing music, or I should say playing music and writing music and writing books, prose, all require a certain degree of discipline. And so I'm going to guess, but you tell me, is the fact that you had spent many years as a musician in that discipline, did that help you to discipline yourself as a writer of books?
Yes, because in order to be a studio musician, there are a number of disciplines you have to have. You have to have your craft together or nobody's going to call you. If you're a big star, they don't care. You know, there's plenty of big stars who aren't particularly talented musicians, but they have charm and they have a thing that people like. But with a book, it just takes sitting down and doing it. A quarter of the way through, and I got a call from a writer in London who said, I'm writing a book on Carly Simon. I know this is a big ask, but would you be interested in writing a foreword for it? You certainly know her. And I said, wow, that'd be really cool. So I wrote a foreword and I looked at it and I said, geez, this is kind of good. Anyway, I sent it to him. He says, oh, it's great. And by the way, my publisher really liked it. Would you like me to put in a good word for you? Are you writing anything right now? And I said, as a matter of fact, I am. So he contacted his publisher and she got back to me and she said, I would sign you in a heartbeat. And I went, oh, we're done. Send the paperwork. Before this happened, I wrote to probably 10 agents. And I did all the right stuff. I did research on how to write a letter to an agent to prospect a book. Not one person even returned my email. Not one.
Not surprising.
It seems that if you don't come in with somebody holding your hand, you're not getting in. And you cannot, the big publishers, Simon & Schuster, you know, whatever they are, Doubleday, those things like that, you can't get in there without an agent. They only talk to agents. They will not talk to talent.
Right.
So that's why I was calling agents. So when this came in, I said, I've struck out on 10 points here. Let's just take this deal. And it's a very decent deal. She doesn't do any publicity. You're on your own for that, but the royalty is fantastic. If I were to do a book in a traditional sense, I'd be lucky if I got 10%. And an agent takes 1.5 of that. So now I'm at 8.5%. This deal is 30%.
Nice.
So yeah, that's a no-brainer.
Is that New Haven?
Yes. It is.
Teddy Darlene. And Teddy has been a guest on this show.
Well, Teddy turned me on to you.
That's right. So that's how
that's how you and I are talking.
That's correct. That's how we're talking is correct. So all right, let's talk about your book, California Dreaming and Primal Screaming. Tell the listeners what it's really all about. I didn't give very much away in the bio, so tell us what it's about.
When I was a teenager, I was very, very unhappy. I had a very, very strict I call myself a captive Catholic. There was no choice in the matter. I had been going to Catholic school since kindergarten. the Catholic dogma was hammered into me, and part of me in my mind said, "Well, if the Catholicism is so great, why do I feel like crap?" And I was miserable. I was insecure. I was shy. I had very thick glasses, same as I have now. But for somebody 12 years old, and I wear contacts now usually. For a 12, 13-year-old, 14-year-old, it's kind of a burden. I was not popular. We continued to move. And I just started questioning what is up with this. So about, gosh, I guess I was 18, 19, maybe 20. I started falling away from it. I started saying, this doesn't seem real. It doesn't seem, we're being asked to believe all this stuff with no proof whatsoever. None. Uh, people laughing, oh, you believe in UFOs. And I said, oh, you believe in hell. Don't talk to me about UFOs.
Yeah.
Yeah, you believe that if you're bad, you'll go and burn for all eternity. I don't think so. Life was not a setup. I stumbled upon a book, the Primal Scream, The Ultimate Cure for Neurosis. And I said, what the heck is this? And I got the book and I read it and I went, I've got to do this. And then I found out it was in California and Beverly Hills, and I'm in New York. And long story short, I found not a subdivision, but not a copycat either, but something similar to that in New York. And I started doing it, and it just opened up this whole world to me.
How?
Well, I can describe what you do. You go in there and you sit with a group. In my particular case, we didn't do one-on-one in this one. It was a group. And somebody will say, I'd like to work. And you find a phrase that expresses what's going on. I talk about this in the book. A woman came in and her husband had just died of cancer. And she said, I just have to work on this. I'm miserable. I'm in such grief. So Barbara Scher, this wonderful woman who did this therapy with us, who's been on Oprah and all this stuff. She's passed away now. She's written like 100 books. And anyway, she was our I don't know what you would call it, the group leader, I guess. So she said, what are the words that really express it? She says, I miss you. And I'll make up a name, Tom. Let's say his name is Tom. I miss you, Tom. She says, okay, just go with that. Just say it again. I miss you, Tom. And she starts crying and the tears are falling down. She says, that's it. Go with that. Express that feeling. Don't hold it in. And she's, oh God, I miss it, Tom. I'm so tired. I don't know what to do. And people going, that's it. That's the feeling. Go with it. And you express it. And then she stopped dead in her tracks. Now I'm going to say this, and you may need to cut it out of the thing. And she goes, you motherfucker. And we all went, whoa, what? What just happened? And then she started cursing and screaming and pounding her chair and calling him every name in the book. And the end of the sentence was, you left me alone to manage everything, you fucker. How could you do this to me? You should have had a better diet. You should have done this. And now here I am. I have to manage everything. You mother. And she's screaming at the top of her lungs. And we're all going, this is the Twilight Zone. I have entered the Twilight Zone. We started off with grief, and I don't know where I am right now, but it was really working. Her face was transformed. She was kind of hunched over and all like an old lady, and now she looked like King Kong. She's sitting up in her chair. Her face was flushed and bright. Her eyes were as clear as glass. And at the end, she finally said, that's it. And she said, now I can wish him well on his journey. And it was so beautiful. God, I'm getting choked up even talking about it.
Is it that it's a purge? You're getting it out. You're having a cathartic moment.
Absolutely. And you wouldn't believe how much of this stuff we carry around from childhood, from events in our lives and all these things. And we store them up. And in that storage, that is blockage. And that blockage causes diseases. I mean, everyone will tell you that stress is the killer. And this is what stress is. It's just storing these horrible moments that warp your personality into an angry person or a sad person or a weak person. It's all from experience. Now, that's not the only thing he did, and that's not the whole book. That's just the first chapter.
You go into all kinds of different therapies and psychological things and spiritual things and so on all throughout it. You also write early on about your parents and that they were prejudiced people and that it had to have affected you growing up. There's no way it couldn't.
Oh, absolutely. But it's another thing that made no sense to me. People are people. Why are people inherently bad? And I remember my sister being asked out to a prom or a dance or something by the captain of the football team, who happened to be black. And my dad, when she said, no, I really, I don't think I'm going to be going to that, but thanks. It's really nice of you to ask. And he did this in front of my dad. And so he left. And my dad, he blew a gasket. Better not show his face around this house again. How dare he ask you? And I went all of a sudden, oh, that's where we are we? Huh, okay.
All right, so I'm curious, as a person that winds up in the music business, how do you think that growing up in that environment affects or affected the way that you played? Did you come at it from an angry and attacking mode as a player? Do you think that impacted you in any way, or do you think that was irrelevant to your being in the music business?
Of course it affected, but I'm not sure how. In high school, I was just sad. I was just miserable. And the first songs I wrote, like on the first Critters album, were all sad songs about rejection and all that stuff like that. I have since, thank God, graduated from that stage. Mostly, I just wanted to be good and I wanted to be a star. I didn't approach it with anger. I approached it like it was a solution. I felt that if I could get good enough, then I could do what the big stars were doing. Now, I never became a star, but I did become star adjacent.
Yes, definitely.
You
You've played on some of the biggest stages in the world and some of the biggest records in the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it was just a determination that if I did that, if I put in the time and I put in the effort, and the effort was wonderful. I mean, I was learning to move my fingers and make the same sounds that I was hearing on the radio. And the more I was able to do that, the more enthusiastic I became about it. So I would come home from school and just pick up my guitar, and it didn't help my homework any. It didn't help my studies. I was a solid C student. I was never, an A student at all.
But part of that process was that you were, I don't want to use the word imitating, or at least emulating what you were hearing and trying to then recreate it. And that was putting your fingers through those motions.
That's exactly it. And I wasn't trying to be Buddy Holly or Elvis Presley or anything like that, but I felt that I needed to learn exactly what they were doing as at least a platform to start, to have the dexterity to create within those things. And in those days, we were all cover bands. Even the Beatles were cover bands. The only reason they started writing, Paul tells this story, says the only reason they started writing is because they would play at gigs where other bands were playing, and the other bands would be doing the same songs they were doing. And the only way to get out of that was to write their own songs. Otherwise, they never would have started either. And it wasn't that way with me particularly, but I mean the Critters, when they first started out, were absolutely a cover band. So learning the songs was part of the job.
Well, I think most bands have to start by doing other people's work to figure out what their thing is in order to go off and write other stuff. So back to California Dreamin' and Primal Screamin'. You definitely discuss, and we've already alluded to religion and Catholicism. You discuss how religion has caused more problems from your point of view than it's solved. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? And how do you think that has affected music, creativity, art, and so on over time?
I mean, certainly there's some beautiful art in cathedrals in there. And there's stained glass windows. And in devotion I have no problem with devotion to God at all. I'm not religious, but I am certainly not an atheist on any level. But I mean, look, the Crusades, the Spanish Inquisition. I will say I really, really like the last two popes. I think their hearts are in the right place. Where I don't agree with the whole heaven and hell and judgment and all that stuff. I don't think God would set us up like that. The all-loving God isn't going to put you down here. Let's see if you can do this. If you can't, I'm really going to mess with you.
But you do believe in higher entities. You do believe in...
Oh, absolutely. Well, I'm a teacher of transcendental meditation. I mentioned that in the book. And when you meditate, when you get to a certain place of silence, that silence expands into something that's really not very describable, but it is huge. And I will tell you that people sometimes call it the one force, the one source. I think that's God. And the argument that I make is this is a funny one. This got my guy from Frontiers and whatever, Anderson Salgado, that's the guy's name. This got his hackles up a little bit. So I said, all right, so you believe in all that, right? He said, oh yeah, I'm a good Christian. I said, okay, is God everywhere? Is he omnipresent? He says, yeah, absolutely. So he's in every cell of your body, right? Yeah. And I said, in the spaces in between? He goes, yeah, of course. I said, okay, then you are God. He said, no. God is no, he's not over there. If he's omnipresent, he is in you. I said, I'm going to take this one step further. Is he everywhere? Everywhere? And he says, yeah. I said, then God is Satan. And there was silence. He says, no, that's impossible. I said, well, then he's not omnipresent.
So what we're discussing at the moment is the essence of what people call faith. That is to say that there's no proof of what you're talking about. You have to believe in it. And you actually talk about belief in the book, and that you were seeking because you didn't believe, and that you've continued to seek over your life.
Yeah, I much less so now. A few years ago, I kind of hit I got to there we are. All right, good.
Where is there we are? What does that mean?
There we are means that you've reached a point where you're not seeking anymore. You know that what you're seeking is already inside of you. It's kind of a Buddhist thing, and it's definitely Eastern, much more than Western. And you stop, because God is omnipresent, and all the religions teach that, he is in you. And when you silence all the noise, he's right there. And he's not a he, and he's not a body, and he's not an old gray man with a beard. He is simply presence. He is simply presence. And if you spend enough time sitting in that presence, that silent presence, you actually feel it expand out and out and out into eternity. And at first, it's just an experience. At first, oh, this is a cool experience. And then you really realize, but where is this experience? It's me. That is who I am. I am not this body. I am that consciousness, that huge, broad consciousness. And you hit that enough times, then all of a sudden you start relaxing. There's nothing to look for. It's all right here.
Is that what you identify as true identity?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that comes in through silence?
Well, the best way to get to it's through meditation. Some people stumble and fall into it, like Eckhart Tolle, lucky guy. I mean, he just sat down on a park bench for 3 years or something like that. It hit him like an 18-wheeler, and he just fell into it. And he teaches about the exact same thing that I'm talking about. For most of us plebs, you got to start meditating. I've been doing it for 52 years now, and it took 45 of them to hit this point. Now, I'm not telling you, I would not pretend to tell you it's there all the time. It's not. But it's there every time I stop and say, all right, where am I? And I close my eyes, and there it is. When you realize that it's infinite, there can't be two infinities. So it's the self. It's the undefined consciousness that looks out through your eyes. It looks through your ego. Your ego is what presents you to the people. Okay, you're up there, your personality and all that stuff. But behind that ego is a self, the you, that's watching all of this. That's just the observer. That's just the witness. And if you sit with that witness without all the layers of ego and personality on it, you get back to that point and all that other stuff is silent. You realize that has no boundaries. That's not locked in your body. It expands out beyond your body. And well, wait. And it's the same self for everybody. That's why people say we are all one. It's utterly meaningless if you don't have this experience. Oh, yeah, we're all one, kumbaya. But without the experience, it doesn't mean anything. We're all one. No, you're you, I'm me. This is a problem. But when you have this experience enough times, you start to realize that you are that person over there. That's just a personality and a body working. And
so what you call true identity is everyone, all beings, is one true identity?
Yeah, and to reduce it to an identity would be mistaken because it has no parameters, no boundaries. It's pure consciousness. It doesn't see, it doesn't hear, it doesn't smell. The body does all that. It simply witnesses. But it is the source of everything you see here.
So then, so then, who are you or me or anyone else as then the person who creates music, creates words on paper, etc.? I would say, I've had many guests on this show who will say, and I say the same thing, which is that I am not the creator of what I'm doing. I'm a conduit for something that's coming from elsewhere.
Yes, 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 yes. John Lennon said the same thing. He says, I don't write songs, I just write them down.
Hmm.
And I feel exactly the same way. I feel that everything I do, I give thanks. If I write a good cue for this movie I'm working on, I said, thank you guys, that was really great. You know, where does the idea come from? I sat with a teacher once, and she was talking about free will. And to a certain extent, free will is real. You know, you make choices every single day. But I said, so it's real, right? She said, well, yes and no. And I says, what's the no part? And she says, well, give me an example of where you make a choice. And I said, well, I decided to get up this morning. She said, did you? Where did that idea come from? And I said, well, I just got up. Yeah. And where did that come from? Well, you know, I went and made my coffee. And where did that idea to make your coffee come from? I said, I just came up with it. You just came up with it. How? Tell me how that happened. And I can't come up with it. And she keeps pulling me farther back into consciousness. And she said, what happened is it simply arose in your consciousness. And I said, yeah. And she says, and where did it arise from? I went, I don't know. She says, now we're getting somewhere. That's it. Things, ideas, all that stuff arise from this vast, unbounded field of consciousness that we all share. We all have it.
So why do you think it is that you have an idea come through you that you can express, but it's not going through someone else at the same time, or the day before, or the day after? Why is it coming through you at that time? Why?
Well, there's a vast internet, but the stuff that comes up on your computer isn't the stuff that comes up on mine.
No, but there are people on Facebook that are getting the same ads as that I am.
I know. And there are people on Earth that are getting the same ideas too. You call them political parties.
That's there is some truth to, if you look back in history, a huge number of breakthroughs, scientifically, medically, artistically, creatively, etc. A huge number of breakthroughs will happen on different parts of the earth with different people right at the same time in history. And they don't talk, they don't know each other, and they haven't exchanged notes, and they're just coming up with the same concept at the same time.
Yeah, we could do an hour on that, just that alone. But it's coming through our receivers, okay? We're like radios, and your radio is different from my radio. And our radios are shaped by the experiences, our genders, our preferences, anger that we've experienced, grief that we've experienced, all these things. It comes up, but it filters through all that and comes out in a unique form that's unique to you. And like you just said, sometimes it's not unique to you. Sometimes it's unique to about 30 people.
Right. So you've experienced many different facets of spirituality and religions and so on. You were introduced early on to a book about Hinduism. I think it was called Hinduism, correct?
Yeah, it was.
And you have ultimately, you went through primal screaming and so on, and ultimately you came to transcendental meditation. Is that what you still practice daily?
It is. Well, I do that for the most part, but I've had several spiritual teachers who they took some exception to the transcendental meditation technique. I don't necessarily agree with them, but I sometimes use their techniques too, which are fine. They work very well, and they're coming from a pretty high place. These are good teachers. I'm really careful that I don't sit down with teachers that aren't so good.
How do you think that meditating has impacted or helped you as both a writer and a player?
I think it's sensitivity. I think it develops the heart. It develops the heart so that you play in a heartfelt way that moves people. I feel that my playing and my music is more real now. For a while, it was just my fingers worked really well and I was doing stuff that I'd learned and stuff like that. Now it comes from a deeper place and I think it connects better and I feel it. I actually feel it in my body when I'm playing, when I'm connected and when I'm not connected. And it's helped me tremendously with that.
And that's because of meditation.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it's helped me immensely. Well, I mean, all the things that I did that you read in the book, and I mean, I did LifeSpring, one-on-one therapy, Freudian, Jungian, gosh, the occult, psychics, TM. Oh God, just so many things. They were all helpful. Every single one of them. I would not write off. Well, the occult thing I'd probably not go near again. That was pretty scary. But all of those have helped me being so hard on myself, stop being so negative, stop being so sad. They've turned me into a pretty darn happy person.
Because you were a high anxiety person as a young person, correct?
Very much so. Very much so.
And you were even high anxiety well into your adulthood.
Yes.
But now you've become a more relaxed and calm human.
Yeah.
Mainly because of what you've gone through.
Exactly. I'm a warmer person. I'm much, much less judgmental. You know, I really tend to take people exactly where they are, how they are, without trying to come up with all the reasons why they're idiots and stuff like that. I've come to understand stress and I've come to understand programming. And I'm much more tolerant. I think that's something that my father was really, really good at teaching me because he was completely intolerant. So he gave me a good example of what intolerance can create. And that started it. And my mom was a little bit better. She wasn't shrieking about it, but
and therefore what not to be or who to be.
Exactly. Seeing the damage that sort of thing does. I got back at my mom really good. My mom was very anti-Jewish and very prejudiced. My dad didn't like black people. My mom didn't like Jews. So I married a Jew. That's not my current wife. She's the mother of my children, and we lasted about 20 years, and that didn't work out for. It's in the book. Just read it.
How is what you call cosmic consciousness?
Mm-hmm.
How is that related to transcendental meditation? Have we already covered that in some way?
What cosmic consciousness is, there's 3 basic states of consciousness that normal people: waking, sleeping, and dreaming. When you meditate, you have a thing called transcendental consciousness. When the transcendental consciousness, which is things calm down and quiets down a little bit, and you start to feel that true self. Cosmic consciousness is when you integrate that, you ground it, and you have it all the time. And that's the first stage of enlightenment, where you are the witness of all activity. You're living in that space that I was talking about, not up front here in the ego. So you're kind of watching your own ego performing its stuff while you're sitting back in this blissful, absolutely unbounded, untethered by anger or stress or anything like that. I mean, it's not like you lose your personality. Sure, somebody does something horrible to you, you're going to get mad, but you're not going to carry it around. It's going to be done the second it's done, and then you're back into this wonderful sense of, oh man, this freedom of just hugeness. That's cosmic consciousness. But then there's 2 more above that, and then a refined version of the next one. There's God consciousness. The name of it is it's deceiving because it's not God consciousness per se, but it's when your perception is refined to the point where you can perceive atoms. You perceive the energy in things. And there are people who describe, there's a person in my community here who wrote a book on it, and he talks about what he sees. And I'm like, oh my God, what kind of eyeballs do you have? You know, he sees spirits, he sees angels, he sees molecular structures. He literally sees them. He sees the energy coming off of animals, whether it's dark energy, whether it's light energy, depending on how healthy they are. It's a fantastic book. It's by a man named Harry Alto, Aalto. And if you stumble on it, you'll read it and you go, what is this guy drinking? Oh my God. But that's his experience, and he's a very normal human being. And he's meditated for many, many years. And then the final one is unity consciousness. When you actually perceive, it's not a concept. It's not an idea that you have. I would be looking at you and know that you are me. You would be me. I wouldn't be talking to Steve. I would be talking to me. And when you're at that level, you're really, really good to be around, because that's a person that treats you like yourself. That's a person that perceives you as themselves, so no harm will come off of you. You immediately feel just so comfortable around people like this.
So that's not the same as self-love.
Self-love kind of implies two things: the lover and the loved. This is one thing. Whenever you get into this area, it's really hard to describe because it has no boundaries or parameters. You have to, the only thing it has is the experience of experiencing it. So when you're experiencing that, it's not, you're all love. Everything is just great. And the person across from you is you. So why be mean to him? Why be harmful? I'd be doing it to myself. So you're not self-loving. You are the self. So you don't harm the self. Doesn't even occur to you.
One of the things as a writer that I find, and you may find it too, is that there's a frailty, a fragility to language, and being able to express it in words. Sometimes it's not only difficult, it's almost impossible, and it requires the experience rather than the expression in a verbal way.
What's the taste of an orange to know somebody who's never had an orange? Well, it's sort of acidic, what, like hydrochloric acid? You know, how do you describe it? You know? But yeah, with prose, it really, really, the meditation helped me with the book because I was able to find my sense of humor. I was able to write it in a way that would entertain because I understood entertainment after all these years of doing it. And
I think you're very clear in the book. I think the book is very clearly and well written. So it's not like I read it and couldn't understand what you were talking about. I absolutely could. So I think that's a big thing. What is the life between lives?
That's a tough one. I don't like to say I believe in anything, but reincarnation makes good sense to me. I won't say I believe in it because unless I'm there and I know who I was before, which in these hypnotic regression sessions I did. But when you're out of that, you go back and say, was that real? Did I really do that? Gosh, it sure sounds like I did, because my life today really seems like it would have evolved out of that kind of a background. Life between lives is vacation. That's the heaven realm. There's, that's
the soul world.
Yeah, the soul world. And from what I understand from talking to very, very talented psychics, it's just like this, only it's really happy. There's no egos involved. It's heaven. It is literally the heaven realm. And you can hang out there as long as you like, but most people want to evolve. You don't evolve there. You just, whatever level you got there, that's the level you're at. So people come back to Earth or somewhere. I mean, after doing this telescope thing, there's plenty of choices out there.
I was going to say, coming back full circle to the beginning of this with looking out into the space, into the cosmos, we now know there are trillions and trillions and trillions of planets and galaxies and so on. And so my question then, from what used to be very limited understanding of the cosmos is now a still limited but much grander than it was, is that, how many of those planets out there have sentient beings walking on them or somehow on them?
The odds against us being alone are absurdly low. Or the odds against it are absurdly high, I should say.
Not to coin a phrase on that, but they would be astronomical.
Astronomical, exactly. I mean, there's so many opportunities. And so these places are so far away. I'm not sure under normal circumstances. Now, I also am a firm believer in extraterrestrials.
Well, if you understand quantum theory at all, which I only understand barely the surface of, what's happening here between you and me and those of us on Earth, quantum physics says it's every bit of what's happening here energy-wise is also happening everywhere else throughout the universe. And that you can have something happen energetically here on Earth that's also being sensed, felt, dealt with, looked at somewhere else. And that's quantum mechanics, basically.
Yeah, you get into quantum mechanics, it gets really bizarre.
What is your thinking for artists and creatives that figuring out how to silence the mind to get to this to these other higher planes, that's a useful tool for becoming more efficient or proficient or at your art.
Well, let's put it this way. The Beatles sat down with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, the one who founded Transcendental Meditation, and the next thing they did was Sgt. Pepper. And then believe me, there was a transition that they went through once that album hit that was really, really strong. And Paul meditates to this day, and George did as well. George did a lot of other Eastern explorations. I don't know about John. I've no idea. Ringo, I also don't know, but Paul certainly did, and he certainly has had the longest career of any of them.
Well, and the most prolific career. You say he was a really nice guy. Have you worked with him?
Oh, that was in the first book. Yeah, we were doing a vocal.
Oh, that's right. Now I'm recalling. Yes, for sure.
Yeah. He just popped into the studio and he helped us out with some vocals. Yeah. And then sat down and played us "Live and Let Die" the night before he recorded it.
Oh my goodness.
My goodness. I was sitting there just pinching myself. This isn't real. I'm dreaming. I'm going to wake up any minute now.
Did you know that was going to be a hit when you heard it?
I don't think I thought about it. I think I was so overwhelmed because I was such a huge Beatle fan. The idea that I'm standing here around the Steinway piano in the studio, and one of my favorite Beatles, I think between John and Paul, it's a toss-up, he's sitting there singing me a song that he wrote that nobody's heard except George Martin and maybe Linda, and maybe I guess the guys in Wings rehearsed it because that was a Wings record. So, the 3 or 4 guys in his band, George Martin, Linda, and me. Well, me and Carly Simon and whoever was in the studio at the time. But the honor of doing that was just nuts. And then I wrote about this too. Then I got invited to his first performance of Wings due to the connections that had been made through all of that. And he set up the Hard Rock Cafe in London and did a concert with Wings. That was the funny story where Henry McCullough, his guitar player, got so drunk he couldn't play. And Henry and I were friends at the time. Henry walks over he was playing in the middle of the room. It was kind of in a circular thing. We were all around. Henry walks over and puts his guitar in my lap. He's, "Jimmy, I can't play. You got to take over, mate." And they were playing a blues song. So I just picked the guitar up and started playing. And Paul turned around, looked at me like, "What the?" And then he saw I was playing the song, and he goes, "Eh." I think he knew what was going on. I think he knew Henry could barely stand up.
Wow.
And I think he was happy to have somebody who knew the song and was playing it fine. And then eventually Henry somebody got him some coffee, and I gave him the guitar back. And
wow.
Yeah. So I actually played with McCartney. I actually played one song with Wings.
That's wild. Well, I for the second time, I've been having just an absolutely fabulous conversation with Jimmy Ryan. I'm just wondering, last show you gave us some great examples of stories that are weird, quirky, offbeat, strange, or just plain funny. Do you have anything else you could share with us today?
Sure. I mean, the one you just heard, that was pretty good.
That was pretty good.
The faux pas that may have been the inspiration for You're Sylvain. Okay, we're at the Troubadour in LA, very famous club that launched a lot of careers. And it was launching Carly's career. I think we were this one, I think we were playing with Harry Chapin. I think we were the headliners. And we were in the dressing room. We share one dressing room, and we all came from the hotel dressed. Nobody had to get dressed there, so it wasn't like, well, everybody got to leave while I get dressed. Everybody was set to go. So we're sitting around, and there's a knock on the door. And Carly said, "Can you get that? I just want to finish my makeup." And I said, "Yeah, sure." And I opened the door. There's a guy standing there, and he's got big, thick, gigantic glasses, and he's wearing one of those rayon shirts, that are flammable, and a big high collar, real kind of 60s, 70s look. He said, "I'd like to see Carly." And I said, "Well, we're just about to go on. Maybe come back afterwards." He says, "I said, I'd like to see Carly now." And he got really heavy with me. I said, "Let me think about that." Blam! And I just slammed the door in his face because, I was pretty cocky in those days. I was doing good, and I don't take that kind of shit from anybody. And I start to walk back, and Carly, her jaw is wide open and her eyes are like wide open. I said, "What?" She said, "Do you know who that was?" I said, no, it's some asshole. Who, what? She goes, no, that was Warren Beatty. And I went, oh no, oh my God, let me go get him. I'm so sorry. She goes, no, stop, stop. And I go, no, 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 I want to make it right. That was horrible. She says, no. She says, I don't think anybody in his adult life has ever put him in his place like that. You did a really cool thing. Let it go. And I went, okay, you're the boss.
Oh my goodness.
And that was it. And I think he approached her. He didn't come back up to the dressing room. I think he approached her down on the floor or at the bar or something like that. But I don't think it ever got mentioned. But I bet you at least the elements in that whole thing were part of You're So Vain. And I asked her about it because when she wrote her first book, she contacted me. She says, please, please, please send me the longest email you need to do and write about everything you remember about those times. And I said, oh, okay, what's up? She says, well, I have to write a book and I don't remember anything. She said, I remember some stuff, but you have a good memory and you were there and it'll give me another angle on the whole thing. So I put that story in there and I said, so was that something that was the inspiration? She gave me a very cryptic answer. She says, I'll never tell. And that was it. She wouldn't even tell us. You know, she finally has. I mean, in her book, she said it. Warren Beatty was, one of the people. She said there are three people in You're So Vain that she was talking about. But I maintain that the Warren Beatty element in that thing came from that interaction. So,
wow, that's that's kind of remarkable.
Yeah. Now I have another one, and I actually, for your readers who want to be studio musicians or whatever, this is how weird getting a call can be. So I'll just read this. It's from my first book. So I get a call. I'm in London, and I answer the phone. Someone with a very thick British accent said, "Is this Jim Ryan?" I said, "Yes," I replied. He says, "I'd like to hire you," he said cryptically. He wanted to hire me. Okay, since he didn't identify himself, I couldn't be sure he had the right number. Did he want me to clean his gutters? I asked, hire me for what? He paused before answering, to play bass, of course. I went, oh, okay. Well, might I know who's calling? He says, Matthew Fisher. Well, the name seemed familiar, but I couldn't quite place it. He said, I'm finally getting around to my solo album, and you were recommended by a colleague. I go, okay, well, I inquired about the finally getting around part. Were you busy with other projects? Asked the memory-challenged ignoramus on my end of the phone. He said, well, yes, actually. He thick British accent. Well, yes, actually. I've been on tour with my band, Procol Harum, for years and talking and taking some time off to do my own album. Procol Harum. Oh my God. Slapping my palm to my face. This was the gentleman who wrote and performed the famous organ part that opened and defined Whiter Shade of Pale. And he wanted to hire me. And I answered the phone acting like he was looking for a plumber. I let out a nervous laugh and told him, of course, now I remember you. So sorry for not recognizing your name. He seemed distant, formal. The apology went right over his head. Yes, well, we'd like to start fairly soon. Are you available for rehearsals? I said, I am. Where and when? He gave me the dates for the following week in a rehearsal studio address, then abruptly ended the conversation with, we'll be recording in Rome. Make sure your passport is current. This was fabulous news delivered like a traffic ticket. That was him. That was his personality. He was just flat as a pancake.
So that song's one of the 2 or 3 most glorious songs ever written, in my opinion.
You bet.
And performed.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely glorious.
And of course, we made him play it for us.
Of course you did.
Of course. Yeah. Well, it's not particularly complicated, but when it's played by the master, it's exactly like the record. Just like you heard us go, oh, man, this is so cool.
All right, so last question for you today, Jimmy. You've shared a huge amount of helpful, useful tools throughout this whole show, but I'm wondering if you have a piece of advice that you like to share with those who are more than what you told us in the last episode, but that for someone who's starting out in the business or maybe they're in a little bit, what kind of advice can you lend to them?
Park your ego out in the backyard. What can happen is you could get a call to be part of something and feel a little cocky. Wow, Metallica called me up to be a second guitar player on tour. And you could have a tendency to walk and go, aren't I cool? And, start cracking jokes, not knowing what people's personalities are and stuff like that. Everyone hates that. What recording sessions want is they want a family. They want to feel like you're a brother, a sister, somebody that is really cool to hang out with. And that's where less is more, where you want to go in, be quiet, listen, use your ears, get the feel for read the room. That's the advice I get. Read the room. Don't be cocky. Don't be pushing your personality on anyone. Do as you're told. At least initially, when you get to know everybody much better, you can loosen up a little bit. But initially, you stick out like a sore thumb. You're the new guy, and everyone's going to be watching you, and they're going to be looking for quirks or something because they don't know you, and they're not sure, is this going to work out or something like that. And you just want to be neutral and pleasant and really, really good to be around. Don't come in thinking you're a hot shot. Don't think you're better than anyone else. Calm down. Calm down. Just park the ego outside. As a matter of fact, that's what Quincy Jones said when they did that "We Are the World" thing. Yeah, he said that to people like Diana Ross and Huey Lewis and, all the huge stars that were there. He said, he put a sign up, leave your ego in the car. This isn't the place for it. And people walked in like, whoa, wait a minute. Bob Dylan was there. I mean, the biggest stars in the business were on that thing. Lionel Richie.
Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson, right. Park your ego out in the parking lot. Don't bring it in here.
That's outstanding advice that works in all forms of business and life, is that until you're on the spot and where people are asking you for your opinion, keep your opinion to yourself until it's wanted. And it's sometimes difficult for people. I know I'm guilty of it, occasionally offering an opinion that nobody's asked for. I think we all do it. And it's a very good piece of advice because it means that you are a team player, not in it just for yourself.
Yeah. And I mean, I've been in sessions where somebody comes up with an idea that's just awful. And the sessions where I said something, I didn't get called back. And I was right. It was awful, but it wasn't my place to say something. And I've been in sessions where something awful was happening. I don't mean nobody was throwing guitars or breaking it. I just mean a bad musical idea. And I just kept my mouth shut until somebody said, "What do you think?" And I said, "No, I think it's a great idea. As an alternative, maybe we could try this. If you're looking for some variety, possibly." And if you present it like that, it's really different than saying, "No, that sucks. Let's do this." You don't want to say that. The producer can say that.
The key in there was they asked you.
Yes, exactly. In the new situation, wait to be asked. Wait to be asked and present your idea politely.
I think that's absolutely solid sound advice. And I thank you for saying it, because I think it's important for people to understand that, yes, you should bring your ego to the game, but you shouldn't offer it to anyone.
Your ego is part of your personality, and ego isn't necessarily a bad word.
You need it in order to play well, to perform well. You need that ego. You need that to buff it up. It's just that you don't need to impose it on people.
Exactly. You don't need to bring the negative side of it up.
That's true. Jimmy Ryan, this has been an absolutely spectacular story beat, and I can't thank you enough for your time, your energy, and all this great wisdom.
Wow, thank you, sir. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk. You're great. You ask great questions. You make it so easy.
Thank you. It's my great pleasure. So, and now, as promised, please sit back and enjoy Jimmy's excellent song that he wrote, produced, and on which he plays all the instruments, called "Why Can't We Just Be Friends," featuring the vocals of Dana Calitri.
It's a mystery why all this has to be. I'm gonna let you have some time, 'cause I know you're not mine. But it kills me when I hear you say, why can't we just be friends? 'Cause I'm still in love with you. I wish that I could change what you're going through. Why can't
And so we've come to the end of today's Story Beat. If you like this episode, won't you please take a moment to give us a comment, rating, or review on whatever app or platform you're listening to. Your support helps us bring more great StoryBeat episodes to you. StoryBeat is available on all major podcast apps and platforms, including Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and many others. Until next time, I'm Steve Cuden, and may all your stories be unforgettable.